That title has to be the craziest statement that one person who plays Warframe could ever make, especially when you know that they are the abilities that supposedly quote-unquote define Rhino. Iron Skin and Raw are both generational in their own ways the more you understood them. One has the potential of surviving level cap without any investment. One can go as far as amplify your damage to infinite. But none of them are the star of today's show. What? Am I reading that right? Health Tank and Rhino can coexist in the same sentence. There is no way this is a build that just works, right? Right? The funny thing is, Health Tank Rhino is actually something very viable. Health Tank Rhino isn't something that you would be interacting with, because why would you when Iron Skin already exists? Nobody who is sane will ever look at Rhino and randomly goes, what if I make Rhino tank through other ways that isn't Iron Skin? Because that is such an abnormal thought to have. Unless you are me. Health Tank Rhino can exist is strictly because of two things. One is the fact that Rhino has access to Piercing Raw, a way to make enemies deal 80% less damage to you in a very wide radius. Two is because of an augment you wouldn't thought of using the other way. Ironclad Charge. Ironclad Charge, as I have said before, is just pointless in Rhino's kit. There is hardly any reason justifying the use of this augment, even more so when Jade Light Rhino is now a thing. But this is actually where Ironclad Charge actually sees the best use of. Let me explain. The idea is as simple as it gets. You gain armor rating for each enemy struck by Rhino Charge for 10 seconds. Although it doesn't have a cap to the bonus, you won't get this much enemy count to work around, so please be mindful of that. What makes it truly remarkable for health tanking is that the armor buff is not additive like most other sources, like Warcry or Vex armor. It is the first ever multiplicative armor buff known in this game, the second being Oberon himself, though not to the actual extent of that. You could say that Oberon is quite the synergistic support for Rhino, but I digress. What is shown here is a Rhino with only steel fiber modded, but without Ironclad Charge. Now with Ironclad Charge hitting 4 enemies instead. Here is the math if you care. Health Tank Rhino being a very viable meme build is as simple as him able to push his armor to a level that none of the frames that tanks with armor could reach. Even 10k is already an extremely tough ask for frames like this. Rhino, however, can reach 80k to 100k armor value for a short period of time if he hits a decent amount of enemy. If I assume Rhino now has 100k armor, that is 334.3x EHP for your red HP. Assume that you have 1k HP, that's 334.3k EHP. Wow, seems much less than Iron Skin, isn't it? But what makes Health Tank Rhino much more considerable is that health actually benefits from damage reduction, is able to regenerate insanely quick with so many other different tools, and you also keep Rhino Stomp, which is an even greater increase to your survivability and to deal with violence. By the exchange, you aren't status immune, and it is more reliant on you keeping track of the timer of Ironclad Charge and Parasitic Armor. You can think of it more as a slightly better side grade to Iron Skin setup, but either of them is leagues worse than just a Rhino who stands under a Jade Light. Anyways, I will be using a subsume that you all most familiar with, but replace Iron Skin instead. I want to fit Piercing Raw in, but unfortunately, I ran out of mod slots. I also equipped Arcane Deflection to make me immune to slash procs, and Arcane Expertise to help me gain a great chunk of shield points. Shot wise, this is what I had. Panzer is also specifically built to help me heal my HP back and energy economy. The mods on him aren't as important. So is this build good? Yeah, it's good, but to be honest, it still doesn't change the fact that Iron Skin with enemy damage is just golded. Theoretically, it works pretty well, but you better off just keep Iron Skin, understand enemy damage, and thrive within the chaos. Press Rhino Storm, blah blah blah. Still, credit where credit is due. This build is still capable of performing. Shooting Rhino is basically just Rhino making good use of his very above average shield points, on top of having Piercing Roar as an augment to gain damage reductions and subsumes such as No Star to allow his shield to withstand lots of damage before it could be drained, and Rhino Stomp to give shields some room to regen back. Yeah, that's it. Shooting Rhino is surprisingly more viable than it should, with both Piercing Roar, No Star, innate shield damage reduction and adaptation if you assume it works at full capacity. You will be looking at 99.75% damage reduction, enough for you to survive the basic steel path, despite Iron Skin being absent. It is, in my opinion, a far better pick when compared to a health tank Rhino, since it is less investment required and generally more favorable to play around, despite having not much EHP when compared to a health tank Rhino. This build could potentially see a proper use when there are modifiers that specifically counters overguard gain sources in EDA/ETA. Although Rhino under a Jade Light still easily trivializes them, but this method works too if you don't wanna rely Jade Light. There's nothing really much for me to say about this build other than the fact that it is just a surprisingly good build for Rhino. And if you are bored of the usual Iron Skin shenanigans, this build can serve itself as a breath of fresh air. Anyways, this is the build I had for Shooting Rhino. Remember to have No Star as your subsume and make sure to have at least a shield regeneration mod equipped so that shields regenerate back much faster. Shot wise, this is what I had. You can replace more augmented with arcane energized if shot count is a problem for you. Pet wise, it's whatever this time around. I would honestly recommend you bringing a death cube for energy economy and mod the sentinel weapon past 50% crit chance to trigger Tenacious Bond. And that is basically the point of today's video. So, to answer your question, is any of the builds here better than just Iron Skin? Unfortunately, no. Iron Skin, no diff, both of them. Iron Skin is unfortunately an ability that has proven itself to be very phenomenal when well understood. While builds like such are a strict downgrade for Rhino, but it doesn't mean that they are far from being remotely viable. If you are bored of the usual Rhino gameplay and wanna try something fresh that is somewhat fun to play around, these two builds can prove themselves to be a refreshing pick. Anyways, that's all for today. See you all next time. Goodbye.